Thank you so much, Carl. I feel like we hit the 5 o'clock mark right at the end of the presentation. But I would still like to ask you, in terms, you were talking about some of the companies on the junior stock exchange, and you were saying that most of these companies have grown. What do you think has accounted for such good growth of these companies?
Well, what we found is that before a company decides to undertake a public listing, they would have to go through a deliberate process of figuring out and strategizing why is it they want to do that public listing. So is it that they want to expand their business? Is it that they want to do an M&A transaction by acquiring another company? Is it that they want to reduce debt? Is it that they want to get additional working capital and all of those things? So I think once they've gone through that process, they've increased their corporate governance, and now they have additional board members that are providing advice and counsel on the business. And the fact that they now have minority shareholders that they're accountable to, I think that drives the company to execute on the plans that they would have outlined in their prospectus. And so, that gives them the momentum to do that. The other part is that because, again, they are getting the income tax relief, companies are able to reinvest that money that they would normally have had to pay for corporate income tax into the business. And that, again, drives the business forward. You have the increased visibility. And so, these companies are able to sell more of their products and their services. They become a lot more efficient. And so all the things that go, because now they are being measured against their peers in similar industries that are listed on the stock exchange, or they're just being measured against other companies that are listed on the stock exchange. And so that, I think, provides an impetus for them to strive to be the best company that they can be, and to be bigger and better, because I think in a lot of instances, a lot of these companies now have a dream of migrating to the main market. And you can only do that if you hit certain performance targets. And I think all those companies want to do that. They want to make their shareholders happy. And of course, they want to migrate and they want to become a big company. So I think when you put all of those things together, that is what I think has provided the impetus for a lot of these companies to do so well.
Thank you. Thanks so much for that. So I want to be mindful of everybody's time, but I know we haven't had time for any questions as yet. So I want to say we give about 5 minutes. So if we have any questions from our clients, since we have such a esteemed panel on board where you may not be able to ask them direct questions otherwise, do we have any questions that you would like to ask? If anybody does, you could put it in the chat or you could unmute your mic and you can ask those questions. We have a lot of participants online this evening.
If I may just actually use privilege as one of the panelists. On Carl's slide 10, he was making the point, if you, and for the benefit of some of the Trinbagonian participants who are on this slide, on his slide 10, he was making the point about some of the rules of engagement when you want to be listed on the stock exchange, the audited accounts, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I found that was an interesting slide because it made the point, yes, your audited financial statements, et cetera, et cetera. I wanted to make the point that as part of the COVID-19 response by the government of Trinidad and Tobago, they made a multi-million-dollar package available for those persons registered under the SME sector, essentially a fund to tide them through the COVID crisis when their businesses would have been faltering. And the Minister of Finance, in providing an update on the extent to which funds had been drawn down on that account, so it was an interest-free, essentially, facility that was made available. He said that many of the SMEs that are registered could not access that government funding because it didn't have basic things like audited financials and the other documentation that we consider fundamental. So I was just, when I looked at that slide, I felt it was instructive that here you are listing some of the same things. And I think it's part of the growth process that our SMEs need to understand, that when you're going into this business, this is a serious business. And it is something that requires you to have, and maybe it's really a question of financial literacy in terms of how do you navigate the space and navigate the requirements and the expectations when you actually become small, medium, and you grow. As you grow your portfolio, there are certain expectations that are associated with how you manage your business affairs. So I just wanted to make that quick point.
Thanks for that. I think you're very correct. And I think it's on both ends. It's in terms of when you have angel investing too, I think that board that comes along with it really helps that company to grow also. So you start in terms of taking in that angel investing and then having the board, the training, everything else that comes along, and then moving along the life cycle. So you start right, and then once you move along the life cycle and then you get to exit now, you already have everything in place and that structure to be profitable when you actually exit and go to a cap markets deal. So
if I could just add to that, Shani. So financial statements, I want to reinforce a point, are very, very important because it's not just when you're looking to go to do a public listing. Sandra did make the point, for instance, that you have a number of companies that apply first angels, and very few of them end up completing the process. I suspect one of the issues that they have is that they're not able to provide financial data. If an SME, if you go to a bank and you're seeking debt funding, again, you need to provide, financial statements. So keeping financial records is extremely important for every company, including and particularly for SMEs, because, whenever you go to seek whether it's debt capital or equity capital or anything in between, one of the first things people want to look at is your historical financial performance, because that kind of informs and gives credibility to what it is that you say you're going to do in the future. If you're only making $1 this year and you go and tell somebody, well, next year I'm going to make $1 million, well, they're going to raise eyebrows. But if you are making 600,000 and you say you're going to move to $1 million, it's a lot more credible. And you can evidence and validate that by having financial statements. So it's very, very important that, once you start your business, no matter how rudimentary that financial data is, it's very important that you keep financial data, and as your business grows, you spend that additional money to get proper financial record keeping going, so that you can have financial statements, when you go to approach anyone for whether it's debt capital or equity capital.
Yes, and then Elson, James also is saying, which goes to your point, that he always recommends allowing your cash flows to flow through your bank account. So it helps significantly with financial records, especially with lenders, which is what we want to see. I see Diane Haddad has up her hand.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Dr. Atz, I just want to stick a little salt in that wound there. I do not think that what was offered to the people and the SMEs of Trinidad and Tobago under the pandemic by the government through First Citizens facilitated or was the right formula to be used at the time. And I want to say that the formulas being used cannot and will not work. Now, in Tobago, we have done a lot of work with the SMEs as a chamber, trying to fix and get funding and get formulas for people, because what you have is people who have a talent. They have a product, they have an idea. What they are also overpowered by is fear. Fear that whoever is coming to help them is going to eventually take away what they had. And if I were to look at the formula, even from your angel investments, it actually rises straight to there. the different stages removes the person at some stage, even if it's choice of exit. And the fear of these people growing in terms of understanding the negotiation powers and skills, all of that really takes a lot of time. I also need to say that the SMEs, people speak from the financial sector and from the accountants and all the different areas who are technocrats, speak from a position where you really should have this in order and whatever. But if you actually did it or understood what it took to do it, you will understand that the demands are very high. And I started under a house and very hands-on, and I learned to drive truck and offload it by hand and everything. I always knew, because I was an ex-banker, how important that financial documenting was. And I had to keep it manual and get an accountant to do it. But those things are very costly for the size of your business. What happens is we need to understand, and when you say an angel investor, I would want to know who the angel is. I'm not sure that no angel is coming close to me without me knowing whether is what type of angel and what wings they have. And those question marks, because we've dealt with the people, there are a lot of fears, and they're real. Because we went into the agro-processors to assist them and so. And I went as far as tell you to even borrow money, bought equipment to help one. And then after I did all of that and expanded a building, she backed out on me. So let us understand that the fear factor, because of a lack of...
That's already my go.
Because of the lack of education. And that whole thing is a big problem. Now, more importantly, is this pandemic we are in. I'm not sure what figures people are looking for, because you find that people are still asking you and telling you, well, you know, the business could look this way or could not look that way. But the reality is, people have lost millions of dollars, even as a medium-sized business. People are struggling. People have invested all that they had under their bed or in the kitty and put it back in to save their businesses. So I want us to understand that the formula required now is not the normal formula that would have been used before. And I must say that I was looking forward to hearing more about what is really different about this, because you can't speak to anybody about the last 18 months going for 2 years. And I can imagine going forward, you can't ask anybody to project what's going to happen because we are in the unknown. So I would like somebody to tell me, if they have the answer, did anybody sit down as a team and work out new financial formulations to take you out of where you are and get you there because you had a good history of good business prior to whatever COVID-19 is visiting your life? So I would like to put that to the panel for somebody to discuss that.
So thank you, Dan. I think one of the interesting things, and I mean, we invested in 12 companies pre-COVID, and I think that one of the benefits of having investors on board is that they had partners who were prepared to ride through the storm with them, because everybody's affected. I mean, I think every business, so we understand what our companies are going through. And, you know, we have done work with them in terms of building their resiliency, providing additional financing to them. Let me just address the issue of fear, because I knew certainly when we started 7 years ago, you know, there was a lot of talk about, oh, I won't let an investor in my business because they'll come and steal it. So let me just say that our network, and by the way, JMMB is an associate member of our network. We only have angel investors who are of high integrity, whose motives are developmental, even though they are investors and they expect a return on their investment. They're also more interested in supporting these companies over the long term, right? So the other thing is that we are individual investors. So if there is somebody that in our network that you don't want to have as a part of your business, you can refuse that investment. Nobody is going to force you. And in fact, there has to be confidence on both sides, from the investor and the entrepreneur, that they can work together. It hasn't always happened perfectly, but certainly the intent is there. What I'll say is that certainly when you have an angel investor on board, they are with you over the long term. And once they see that there's value in growing this business and that the founder is prepared to work with them to grow the business, then you have a partner over the long term.
Yeah, and if I can just add to what you're saying, Sandra, because I support all the comments that you've made. I just want to add that this is even more now than ever where you find that financial information is critical. Because, Diane, to your point, if pre-COVID a company had financial information, which means they can evidence to a potential investor that, look, pre-COVID, this is what we'd have done. COVID has come, here's been the impact. We now need capital to help us to either ride out this period, and we project that it's going to take maybe another 2 years. And we need capital to ride out this period. This is what the capital will do, and this is what we expect will happen post that. Or, because it's not always doom and gloom, you have some companies that are actually doing very well. And during this pandemic, they actually need money to expand their business, to take advantage of opportunities. So, it works both ways. But if you think about it, Diane, any investor that, is looking at a company, whether it's for debt or equity, is going to want to understand, what is this business about? How does this company earn its revenues? What is the revenue performance like in the past? And, what are we talking about going forward? What is the profit performance about? So it's not always the case that investors are looking to invest in a business that is already profitable, right? And you've seen that globally, so, we don't need to cite those examples. But more importantly, what investors are looking for, if it's on the debt side, is to ensure that this company will generate enough cash flow to repay that debt, however it's structured. And there are many ways to skin that cat of debt. And certainly at JMMB, and in my unit, we've become very innovative since I've been heading this unit in structuring debt deals for clients. On the equity side, investors are more concerned about what is the future going to look like. Does this company have the products and services that will allow it to scale and grow and provide a return on that investment down the road? But in any of those two scenarios, financial information becomes very important. And I do understand the fear factor, because we see that in our practice every day. Every time we go to speak to someone about an IPO, you have that fear factor. It's a fear of, as you said, will they lose their business? They have to disclose all information about their business with competitors, take that information to their disadvantage, and so on. But I can tell you from an empirical perspective that, as I said before, almost every company that has done a public listing has grown their revenues, their profits, their assets, their employee base. They have done very well. And notwithstanding having to disclose their information, that has not had an adverse effect on their business. So, Darren, I think to your point, we have to get those SMEs in a forum like this so that they can understand the process, so that we can start working towards alleviating those fears and so on. But those fears are real, and I think we have to understand that and agree. But, you can't just live in fear. If you're going to move and advance and develop your business, there has to be a point where, you start to step a little bit outside your comfort zone and recognize that we are professionals that are here for the sole purpose of helping you to grow and develop your business.
Okay, and I see one last question that we have. Is that Jai?
Yes, you have it correct. Thank you, Shani.
All right.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I am Jai Leeladhar Singh. If my surname is a mouthful, I'll just say how it's pronounced, Leeladhar Singh. I'm speaking to you all here as the coordinator of the Confederation of Regional Business Chambers, which is 15 different business chambers under one umbrella spread throughout Trinidad and Tobago. Now, I endorse what my colleague and friend Diane Haddad had just expressed. I want to begin, first of all, by complimenting the presenters, Carl, Mrs. Glasgow, and my friend Marlene on a very erudite presentation. Certainly, I think where Trinidad and Tobago is concerned, we need a new type of investing because right now the entire financial sector is dominated by the banks, which operate in a very oligopolistic manner. They decide how much they will buy money and how much they will sell money. And it's not conducive to the growth of the SME sector in Trinidad and Tobago. There's another thing that you need to take into consideration. Trinidad and Tobago is a multi-ethnic, multi-religious society, and the culture here is extremely complicated. And different communities view the SMEs as something different to them. I just given one example. Some people just see it as a vehicle where they can grow value and wealth. Others see it as a legacy for their family name to live on for hundreds of years. And it goes on and on. And I wouldn't want to get too much into it, except to say that I have been having discussions with JMMB Investments about in terms of the angel investing. Carl, in terms of, first of all, I congratulate you with the work that you have done in getting companies listed on the Jamaican Stock Exchange. It's a little different story in Trinidad and Tobago because I don't think that level of confidence in the stock exchange resonates as well as you will see in Jamaica. And that is a very deep and very existential issue, simply because of how the stock exchange directors and CEOs and so on are in the past. They're very far removed from the society. They don't view this. They have a listing for these SMEs, but their outreach, their education, their information is entirely absent. And families who run their businesses, because the majority of SMEs are family-based businesses, tend to move away from that space. So it's a great idea. It's a great Jamaica is doing. Ms. Glasgow and Mr. Thompson, is great things that you all are doing. It will take a dynamic and a strong cultural shift in Trinidad for this stuff. And then the two societies evolve differently where Trinidad is concerned, because at the time when the energy sector was doing well, there was a lot of liquidity. People were able to access finance. Now the situation has changed differently. And what is a couple of vexing problems of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. Atz mentioned about the SME loan and so on. Let me say, I have been, like Ms. Haddad, I have been one of the most vocal critics of that SME loan. Openly, and I have put it in the press, that I don't think this is the time to start being punitive to people, but to help them get them streamlined. What is the incentive of moving people from the informal sector to the formal sector? Just to give you some numbers, we have 27,000 registered businesses in Trinidad and Tobago. Out of that, 17,000 belong to the SME sector. And then there's another 10,000 to 15,000 of the informal sector. Even contractors who are doing works with the energy sector are not registered businesses, but they exist. And what is that incentive? And what is the incentive, Carl? I'm speaking in Trinidad context, not in Jamaica context, but perhaps your experience and learning could be valuable to Trinidad. Is that what is the incentive to list on the stock exchange when there is a shortage of trust on that institution spread throughout the SME sector in Trinidad and Tobago? That is the reality. But again, in closing, I want to congratulate JMMB Bank, especially the focus you are placing on the SME sector. You must be congratulated because you're not operating like an ordinary bank. We are customary in Trinidad, and I congratulate you all for that. I congratulate Mrs. Glasgow and Carl for their presentations, as well as Dr. Atz, and we look forward to more sessions like this. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And as you say that, we will be having more sessions like this, and we will be continuing the conversation. And I know that we could go on for the entire night, you know, just really going at it and seeing how we make things better. But the conversation continues. This was the first one in the series. So I really hope that you will come back on and you will come to the other sessions. And what we've done is that we've really taken everything that you've said, and we will take it and frame our other sessions so that we make sure that every session we follow up and make sure that we're answering the right questions that you have. So I want to definitely thank everybody. I want to thank the panel that came on to talk today. I know we've gone over our time, but it was very engaging and it was a great conversation. And we can also continue some of it offline. So thank you so much. And we hope to see everyone again at the next session that we're having, and we'll send out that information to you.